stopped assessing the impact. That was in 2015. So since then, we sent out an RFQ. We got a consultant. In 2022, we had the initial meeting discussing the impact fee with council, where Kimberly Horn gave a presentation about the process and what impact fees are. Between 2020 and 2021 was a phase where analysis work was done. They looked at our proposed development. We provided them with GIS information that included roadway systems, sewer, water, all of the things that they needed to prepare an analysis for our impact fees. And also, Public Works gave them a good detailed kind of cost estimate of capital improvements that were needed based upon proposed development. So all of the analysis was done based on the proposed development that we foresee for approved projects for the city of Greenville that hadn't been constructed yet. So in 2021, City Council actually appointed an advisory committee, and they had a work session of fall of last year. So in January 11th of this year, we had the work session where Kimberly Horn came back and did a presentation discussing the land use assumptions and the capital improvements list. So you have the opportunity to look at all of the capital improvement projects that were proposed for the impact fee analysis. In March of this year, you adopted an ordinance actually approving those land use assumptions and the capital improvements. And so today is the public hearing approving the actual impact fees that you saw that were developed, which were calculated as the maximum amount that can be assessed. So basically, next steps, which is today, is to adopt the impact fee and determine the collection rate. So like I said, this study basically calculated the maximum cost, looking at capital improvements, new service units, and land use assumptions to give you a number, which I'll show in the following slide, of the maximum amount that can be assessed by the city. And so that was already established in the analysis for you to see. Now, what the city have the option to do, U.S. Council, is to adopt a collection rate, which is lower than the maximum amount, which is what cities typically do. And so the collection rate cannot exceed the maximum, but it can be less than the maximum amount. And so you are the ones who actually set the rate for the city. So in this slide, I just wanted to go back in time a little bit and show you what was done previously. So if you look at this particular slide, back in 2006, 2007, you can see, for example, in the chart to the left, that the water facilities, the maximum was 2,000, but the city only assessed like 400 per service unit. And each year, incrementally, those numbers increase, which is what is typical. Wastewater started off at 336, and then it eventually got to 672, and then roadway 153, eventually 307 in 2008, 2009. An ordinance update was done, which is the chart to the right, and you'll see what the maximums were. They actually increased, and so the maximum from water went from $2,041 to $2,743. However, council appointed an amount of $1,097. You'll see that wastewater increased from $1,600 to $1,900, and council actually just increased it from previously $600 to $672 per service unit to $796. And so the last thing you'll see is roadway facilities in that 2009 chart. And basically back then, the impact fees were divided into 4 service areas. So the city was divided into 4. However, As you noticed in the current one, we've only divided the city into 3. But back then it was 4, and they only assessed $370, 307. So that really didn't change from the previous year. But this just gives you an example of kind of what was done previously. So how, just comparing the impact fees to other cities. So the maximum that can be assessed per service unit is $2,354. That is the number that is the determining factor. And so every service unit you see in under the service unit column is multiplied by that number. So that's the number that needs to be determined. You need to determine what that collection rate will be, and then each service unit will be multiplied by that collection rate. So if you look at the chart to the right, I was able to find updated impact fee numbers for Princeton and Farmersville and Forney. Fate, currently all I could find was the maximum. I'm not sure if they're assessing the maximum or they have a lower collection rate, but that is the only city compared to Greenville. And so Greenville's number on the chart is the maximum rate compared to what the other cities are currently implementing for a single family unit, which is that minimal unit cost. So Princeton is $2,000, Farmersville $760, Terrell $1,221, Forney $900, Rockwall $412, and then Roar City $2,000. No, that was the fee. It was a set fee. They actually had like $2,000, and you'll see on the next slide, $2,000 for wastewater and $1,000 for transportation. Yeah. All right. So, looking at, you know what? I probably was looking at the wrong chart. Okay, so looking at wastewater, it's the same. Fate has the maximum, but let's see, Princeton, Farmersville, just showing the varying numbers that they have for their impact fees. And what you notice is that there's not a correlation between them where you notice that most of the water is usually less than the wastewater, or vice versa. Like there's really no correlation between the two as far as what was assessed. But you can tell that they probably did maybe a percentage approach in order to determine these. So let me go to the transportation. So roadway, like I said, we have 3 service units. So the number that I have showing as the max is the maximum for the lowest the lowest amount. Which is service area number 2. Rockwall and Fate is not reflected on this chart because their service unit for transportation varies. It's not a set amount. Let me go to, they have them, and I'll show you one of them. They're varying. They have a calculation based upon the area. So the thing about those 2 cities is that they didn't have a set rate for the entire city. They had different rates based upon where you were developing in the city. So on the next slide, you'll see I have everybody's information kind of combined, and you can see the total amounts. Like I said, you're comparing Greenville's max to their numbers. And so Farmersville and Princeton were the only 2 cities that I did not see roadway impact fees. And like I said, Fate and Rockwall, they had varying amounts depending on the area of the city. And so Rockwall, for example, it ranged from $815 to $382. So it really depends. And so that total